Welcome back to another episode of Girls Know Nothing. Today's guest is one of my personal friends. Not only is she my friend, but she is a woman that I find highly inspiring and truly remarkable. Noky Simbani was a former Miss Grand England and was crowned back in 2017. But she is also the reigning Miss Universe Great Britain after beating 38 potential candidates back in July last year. Winning Miss Universe Great Britain made Noky only the third black woman to ever wear the Great British sash on the Miss Universe stage. Not only is Noky beautiful, she is incredibly intelligent. Working as a commercial banker for a leading bank, she is also a graduate from the University of Birmingham with a master's degree in chemical engineering. If this wasn't enough, Noky is also the founder of the organisation Boss Bios and is the BMAE ambassador for SmartWorks Birmingham. Welcome to the studio, Noky. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. It's actually really weird because you're like one of my first, you're actually the first friend I have come on the podcast.
I'm honoured.
It's weird. It's bizarre because I feel like I'm grilling you now.
Same here. I feel like I'm in the hot seat.
How the tables have turned.
It's not the other way around. Literally, not long ago, it was the other way around.
It was, yeah. I mean, hopefully by the time this comes out, I will know. But no, there are so many reasons as to why I wanted to have you as a guest because not only you're my friend, but I think you're an amazing role model for people.
Thank you.
Even though you don't necessarily work in that field now, there are very few women in STEM or study STEM and things like that. I did say in your introduction that you are a Masters of Chemical Engineering.
Yes, I am the master.
The master of Chemical Engineering. No, what made you want to pursue that as your degree?
You were about to say what possessed you to study that.
Yeah, what possessed you to study chemical engineering? Because I did IT as an AS level and that was so male dominated and it made me feel like it churned my stomach.
Yeah, it's not ideal really, but I've been super nerdy since as long as I can remember. So I loved maths, physics, chemistry at school. And I think above that, I've always just wanted to be the best at anything that I do and prove people wrong. And I think I got a good sense quite early on that STEM subjects just weren't considered to be for women.
Yeah.
But I could kind of tell that I had potential in them and I wanted to prove people wrong. And show them that they were women and that I could achieve just as much, if not more, than what my male counterparts around me could achieve. So I was just super determined to prove people wrong from such a young age. And I just stuck at my studies, which I enjoyed anyway, but I really put extra effort into those subjects. And I was good at them. I was a nerd by interest and also by ability. So I got to my GCSEs with 9 A stars and 2 A's, which I was so proud of. I literally cried on results day, which was so embarrassing.
Oh, no, that's cute.
Everyone was looking at me like, why are you crying? I think I cared about my GCSEs more than anyone that I knew. It was so embarrassing. And then at A-level, I studied physics, maths, chemistry, and design technology. And I applied to Oxford and obviously worked crazy hard in the prep for that application. And I got a place. But all of a sudden I had all this crazy pressure on me. And I'll admit, I kind of cracked under the pressure. And I ended up missing the grades that I needed to go to Oxford. But I also had an offer at the University of Birmingham because my grades were still good. I got 3 A's in maths, chemistry and physics. So I went to study at the University of Birmingham doing chemical engineering. And yeah, it continued to be a crazy challenge. But I got through it in the end.
It's insane to hear that somebody that got 3 A's missed an opportunity to do something.
It was literally by 3 marks as well. I was literally devastated. But it was such a I know it sounds so cheesy, but it was such an important learning curve for me on how to deal with pressure.
Were you ever in your young years told that engineering wasn't for you?
Yeah, but I didn't care. I think I've grown up in a family that I'm so fortunate has given me kind of the resilience and the conviction to go for things that aren't really, quote unquote, for me. My parents are immigrant parents, so they already kind of did what wasn't traditionally for them by coming to live in the UK and building a life for themselves here. So they've always given me that kind of motivation and attitude to just go for things, because they sacrificed so much to get me here that I need to just take every opportunity that's in front of me. And my family are very much kind of a feminist family. My dad has 5 sisters. My mum is one girl of 6, but she's always been given that kind of fighting spirit. So it's always motivated me to kind of want to show that I can achieve anything, really.
No, that's really amazing. And I think it's obviously like the success you have is testament to your family as well.
Yeah.
But obviously you left university and you went to pursue a career in engineering.
Yes.
So I can't even begin to imagine what that was like. Literally, because I'm not a science person at all, I'm sat here going, you are actually crazy. But I can imagine like being a young Black woman, it's very hard to like be in that industry and work in that space.
Yeah. Do you know what? One thing I didn't actually mention was why I chose engineering.
Okay.
So I think it's quite a good topic to touch on because it's something that a lot of people wouldn't really consider. So I mentioned that I loved physics, maths and chemistry at school. So I studied them because I enjoyed them, number one. And number two, I knew that as a combination, they were really strong. I could go into lots of different fields. And one thing about me is that I am a commitment phobe in like so many senses. But I never wanted to commit to one single career. I didn't want to study medicine, even though everyone said, oh, you're clever, do medicine. Because I was like, I don't know if I want to be a doctor. I can't commit to this. So I just chose subjects that kept the doors like completely open for me for as long as possible. So again, when it came to choosing what subject I wanted to study at uni, I wanted to pick something that meant I didn't have to commit to a certain career path.
Okay.
And through lots of different conversations and also living where I live in Derbyshire, where we have like Rolls-Royce, Bombardier, Toyota, loads of engineering companies, I was able to kind of discover engineering as a discipline. And then I chose to study chemical engineering because I felt like that's the one that opened lots of different doors. So you can work in food, energy, pharmaceuticals, all sorts of different fields. So I just thought, let me do that. Then I don't have to commit to anything. So then when I was at uni, I worked in a few different companies through internships. So that helped kind of build my knowledge of different sectors and what I enjoyed. So then that brought me to kind of my longest engineering job, which was working as a profitability engineer at an oil refinery. So that's where my experience, my real experience of working in engineering kind of started. So you're asking me what that experience was like.
Yeah, like what was that experience like?
It was intense. It was really, really intense. I felt like it tested me in so many different areas. Number one, obviously intellectually. That was the first time where I had a chance to apply my knowledge, and it wasn't a real life scenario. Like oil refineries are very much like live, and things that you do and decisions that you make, they develop very quickly. So you get to kind of see the result of your work very quickly, which is super interesting. But it's also a very traditional environment. It's a traditional form of engineering. And that means that the people who work in that industry tend to be people who have worked in it for a very long time. Things are changing. There are more women working in engineering now than ever before, but there still aren't that many.
Why do you think it is that young women don't want to pursue a career in STEM post, like for very long, or pursue it in education?
I think there are so many different factors, and it can start from a very early age. So from the earliest ages, as women, we're kind of driven towards certain career fields. So things that seem to be more traditionally feminine, so like nursing, teaching, caregiving, beauty, etc. So it can be from like the toys that you play with, the people that you interact with, etc. So we're instantly kind of given all of that information that this is what you should be doing as a woman. And then at school, those stereotypes kind of start to develop, and then the people around you re-emphasize them. So I'll never forget being in my GCSE maths class, and I'd chosen to do maths with mechanics. You could do maths with stats or mechanics. And obviously mechanics was more like male-dominated based on stereotypes. So I was one of 3 girls in my mechanics class. I remember the boys in my class saying, just messing around, but saying like, oh, this is not for girls, like girls should be doing mechanics. And they were obviously like bantering, but messages like that kind of get reinforced in your head quite a lot along your journey.
Yeah.
And I think even like the most confident of women and the most self-assured of women can internalize those messages subconsciously.
Yeah.
And then you go to university and you've got barely any women around you. You can't really imagine what your life as an engineer would look like. You go into the workplace and the women who you're working around either have had children super late or they don't have children. So again, like if you want to like have a family, you don't have an example of how to do that successfully alongside your career.
Yeah, I guess it's really hard. Like if there aren't that many people that have gone through that path before, like to be able to seek advice on what you should do is probably next to nothing.
Exactly.
Really random side note. Do you think in that sense, single sex schools are beneficial or not?
Oh my God, absolutely. So the one of 3 girls who were in my mechanics class, we were also the only 3 girls in our physics class in A-level. She had gone to an all-girls secondary school and she'd moved to my school for sixth form. So she had grown up in an environment where there isn't really a gender label on a certain subject. So she told me that in her physics class, there were like over 20 girls.
Yeah.
But for me, that was just not the case. And I just thought, that's so interesting that all of you chose to do this and you didn't feel any kind of reservations about it. Like, why did you find it interesting?
Yeah, that's really, I think, because I went to an all-girls school.
Yeah.
And I remember during GCSEs, triple science being one of the most subscribed to subjects.
That's so odd.
But like, obviously you have those conversations with people about whether single sex schools or mixed sex schools are beneficial to your career decisions in the future.
Do you know what? I think there's pros and cons to going to single sex schools, but I actually do agree that it's an advantage for allowing girls to open their eyes to a whole range of different subjects. You have nobody around you kind of really enforcing stereotypes. So why would you not do what you want?
That is true, but you also do pick up bad habits like pulling your tights up in public. you literally just don't, like, you have no sense of boundaries. So you're just like, oh, we're all the same. Like, just yank your tights up. FYI, it takes a long time to get out of that habit.
Yeah, you've attached a lot of attention in an engineering class at uni doing that.
Yeah, I can imagine actually. Obviously, now you work in finance.
Yeah.
Which isn't what you originally studied at university. Kind of what influenced you to make that switch between career paths?
So again, when I chose to do chemical engineering, I'd heard from someone that around a third of engineering or chemical engineering graduates went into finance. Oh. So that again just appealed to the commitment phobe in me. I was
maybe there's loads of commitment phobes in chemical engineering.
I know. I think we literally all go there to just not do engineering. So yeah, I heard that a third of Chem Eng grads do finance. So I always knew that was something that was on the cards. And this is going to sound so bad, but finance, you earn a lot of money for doing a little less taxing work than you would in engineering, earning the same money. So I think that's probably why it appeals to a lot of people. My kind of journey to getting to finance was when I worked in engineering, I worked in profitability engineering. So it was all about working out how to make the machinery run in a more profitable way.
Yeah.
So that opened my eye up to like finance. And I just wanted to explore it in a bit more detail. I just have like so many different interests and I can't help but kind of dabble into them in a bit more detail. So I thought, I actually want to learn more about that. So when I went back to uni to apply for my post-graduate jobs, I applied for engineering jobs and finance jobs. And I got an offer to work in finance and I thought, I'm going to take this and see where it takes me. I have my engineering degree, I have my experience in engineering, and no one can ever take that away from me. So if I do finance and I enjoy it, I'll stay. And if not, then I can always go back.
Is it still really hard? Because it's obviously quite a male-dominated industry still. So you've obviously not picked like the easy jobs for yourself.
Yeah, It is, but in a way, it's different. It's obviously super male dominated, white male dominated as well. So it has those challenges in some sense. But I also think that it's a more progressive industry. Again, the engineering that I worked in was very traditional. So it kind of attracted similar people to who had worked there in the past. But I find that finance is very progressive. So the people are a lot more kind of like open-minded and come from a wide variety of backgrounds, with it being a bigger industry as well. So I feel like there's more openness about diversity and more understanding about it as a subject. So it's more, even though demographically it's quite similar to engineering, the feeling and the ambition to grow and diversify is different. I feel a lot more safe in finance.
That's really interesting. I guess like people talk about it a lot now on LinkedIn, the like sense of feeling safe and secure in your job because you produce better qualities of work, essentially.
Absolutely.
So what would you say that the lowest point of your career to date has been?
So when I was working in engineering, I had a really low point, and I think it's probably been one of the lowest points ever in my life that I can recall. And I was effectively experiencing, for the first time, serious discrimination. And I've always been a super confident person, so I've always been able to stand up for myself and speak up for myself. But when I was in my former workplace, I was one of very few Black people. And I also came from a lower economic background than a lot of people that I worked around. So I'd kind of lived in a more diverse community, whereas they'd been very much sheltered and privileged. So there were a lot of stereotypes that were placed upon me. And of course, being the confident woman that I am, I would stand up for myself and not tolerate it. But eventually that becomes tiring for anyone. And it was so difficult for me to be working in a new place where I have the challenges of working in a new job, being young, being away from home, etc. And then I have that challenge placed upon me as well. And I've never felt more isolated in my entire life. That was a really tough time for me. And it's a time that kind of, I think, made me really think long and hard about what the future could hold for me as a Black woman always working in male-dominated fields. So it influenced a lot of the work that I do outside of my regular work, which is all about creating places where people can bring their whole selves to work, because I felt like I couldn't be myself because small things about my personality, so for example, enjoying rap music, were just so heavily scrutinised. And it just felt like so suffocating. Yeah,
I can imagine. And then the stereotypes placed upon the fact that you enjoy rap music, for example.
Yeah, that's never been something that's questioned about me, ever. It's just people can enjoy rap music, but I was like crucified for small things like that.
That's really, I guess that's probably what potentially deters a lot of Black people and women from certain industries, especially like that.
And I hate that. Like, I've never, ever been the kind of person who allows other people's bigotry to get in the way of decisions that I make. So that was a really tough thing for me as well. When I left engineering, I kind of felt like, even though I left engineering for different reasons to what I've just described, I felt super frustrated because I thought, I don't want people to think that's why I left.
Yeah.
I want other people to feel safe and like they can be themselves in those industries. And I don't want my experience to deter other girls who are like me from pursuing those careers. But I also want to be honest about what I experienced, because it needs to stop and it shouldn't be something that anyone ever experiences themselves.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things that like bystander effect. If you never really speak out about it, are you just contributing to the problem as much as people that are actually causing the issue in the first place?
Yeah, and it's a very challenging issue because I was open about it on social media and I had a lot of messages from people that I worked with who I got on with, but they never really were active bystanders or allies. And also, Black people who I worked with who realised that to protect themselves, they didn't speak up in those situations, and they kind of allowed certain things to be said and classed as banter, whereas I didn't tolerate it. And in not tolerating it, I had a harder time than them. So they were kind of like disappointed in themselves for not standing up for me or themselves, but I understand why they didn't. I empathise with them and I understand completely. But it shouldn't even be a question for someone in their position as to how they react in that situation. They should be able to react in a way that feels natural and not feel like they have to suppress their feelings.
No, definitely. What would you say the highest point of your career is, or like the best part of your career has been so far?
Oh, that's a tough question. I feel like I'm so junior in my career still. That's so difficult. I think for me, honestly, graduating with a master's, I know it's not part of my working life, but I feel like that was such a huge achievement for me because in the environment that I've grown up with quite educated people. And I think sometimes that makes you feel like it's the norm to achieve what you've achieved. Like, I'm just like, oh yeah, I've got a master's in chemical engineering. But no, I actually have a master's in chemical engineering. Like, I need to like deep how big that is. So I'm super proud of my degree and I'll shout about it forever. Like,
I think it's really important to be more open about your achievements. I do find that as women, we are not as open about them because we don't want to be seen as like bragging or like inflate our egos or whatever. Like we are taught every single day of our lives to be humble.
I hate that.
But like, I couldn't do chemical engineering as like a game on like a computer, let alone as a master's. So there's no need to be anywhere near humble about that. But no, like it's something that nobody can ever take away from you. And I think that's why people love studying for a degree so much.
Yeah, my parents have always emphasised that, like, just do your studies and nobody can ever take that away from you and nobody can question it. I actually had, I'll never forget when it was publicised in my local paper that I had won Miss Universe Great Britain and that I have a master's degree in chemical engineering. Someone commented saying, oh, if that degree is from the UK, then good on you because that's a really difficult degree. And I was like, wow, I have a master's degree in chemical engineering and people are still questioning like the ins and outs of how hard it was.
Yeah, or
like,
how intelligent you are.
I know, seriously. I'm like, just respect what I did and don't ask me questions.
No, I know. Briefly, when you were talking about lowest point in your career, you were talking about something you do now, which is your boss bios. You started it on Instagram as like a platform to empower women, but now you do in-person events as well. And I've seen so many, like, I don't know how you have the time to manage all of these things, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about like what Boss Bios is?
Yeah, so we touched a little bit on the fact that the lack of role models is a huge issue. That means that we don't have enough women in certain career fields. So I recognise this from my own experience, and I really wanted to create an environment where people can look to role models in all sorts of different fields and be inspired by them, and kind of use them as a figurehead for what they can look forward to in their career. And then we also talked about the fact that we don't have, as women, enough encouragement to talk about our achievements. And we don't have the confidence to talk about our achievements because we're always being told that it's kind of bragging, it's not classy to do so. And I wanted to tackle both of those issues. So I set up Boss Bios on Instagram, and it's effectively a platform where I interview women who are leading the way in all sorts of career fields. And I allow them to talk about their career journeys, what inspired them to get into the fields that they're in, different challenges that they face in their field and how they've overcome them. Because again, I think it's really important to talk about kind of the lifestyle implications of certain jobs. So for example, if you're a mum, own your own business can be a really great way to pursue your career, but also your family life, and do both really successfully. So we talk about all sorts of different topics in that respect. And you mentioned my events, Boss Brunches. So at Boss Brunch, I talk about different kind of techniques and mindset shifts that you can implement to help you feel more comfortable about talking about what you're good at. Because if you want to progress in your career, you have to get good at talking about what you're good at. So I share different techniques for being more confident in doing that. And then I also get everyone stand up and talk about what they do. So I found that there are people that have attended a few of my brunches, and on the first time they attend, they're just like, oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mum. Oh, I just like do this. And over time, I see them get more and more confident to talk about what they do with conviction and be more detailed and like just feel more proud about what they do. And it makes me feel so happy to see that they have gained that confidence, because if they talk about themselves positively like that in the outside world, everyone else can see how much they shine and what they're capable of.
I think it's really nice as well, like with the brunch idea, it's like a form of networking event.
Yes.
I think there's not that many networking events designed for women to talk about their achievements and meet other like-minded women.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes you can get a sense of feeling quite lonely.
Yeah.
And I guess it's really nice to be able to bring that together.
Yeah. And I think what you said about being lonely is a really interesting point, because it's quite lonely being successful at times. Because if you feel like other people aren't talking about it, you think you're the only one, and then you don't want to brag again. So being around people who are also confident to talk about what they do is actually so important, and it has so much impact.
It's also one of those things where a lot of the time I get asked on like Instagram Q&As how I stay motivated, how do I achieve certain things. But I think one thing that I always tell people, and this is something that's really important, especially when you're younger and you're like still working out your options or things, the people you surround yourself with are so important to how successful or how motivated you are to achieve something. Most of my friends, they're a very small group of people, but they have huge achievements, and it's not a competition to see who's better than the other.
No.
It's a very supportive environment. And I haven't been to a boss brunch, but I can imagine, I know people that have been, and I know it's a very supportive environment, and there's nobody like, you're not having to worry about somebody like being like, oh, she doesn't actually do that, or she's not as good as this as she thinks she is. Like, it's a very open, safe space.
Yeah, I feel super lucky. We can touch on this later on, but in the pageant industry, I find that everyone is such a go-getter, and a lot of people that attend my brunches are from the industry, because it's just friends that I've made over time. But everyone's such a go-getter, and I think we all have this attitude where we don't compare ourselves to each other, because we all know that everyone has so much to offer. So you'd literally be doing yourself a disservice if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people. So you learn to kind of appreciate what other people have to offer, and also respect what you have to offer at the same time. So it just creates such an uplifting environment, and it genuinely is such a positive space. And I don't think a lot of people would believe that, like a room full of women could be that positive.
No, it's always that thing that people always automatically assume there's a stereotype that it's catty.
I know, it's so annoying.
Like the way you rolled your eyes then, I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel every time I mention it. You are also an ambassador to SmartWorks Birmingham. What is SmartWorks for people that don't know?
So SmartWorks is an organisation which basically supports women who have experienced all sorts of different hardships in their lives, be it financial or social, and SmartWorks helps them to re-enter the workplace. So number one, they're most famous for providing workwear for women. So women approach them for their services. They want to look super smart for their interview. So SmartWorks provide them with all sorts of amazing clothing. Marks and Spencer's actually did a campaign with SmartWorks where they produced a certain line of clothing where if you purchase from that line, it would put money into donating to SmartWorks. Another element of what they do is providing interview preparation and CV services for women who are wanting to reapply for jobs. So it's building that confidence, both in how you look, because we all know that when you look good, you feel good, you perform your best. But also the practical elements of the jobs. They have all sorts of experts in HR across different career paths who can provide that service. And it's really amazing actually seeing the stories of women coming into access the service and then going on to do amazing things for their careers. And there can be all sorts of different reasons why women find themselves unemployed, be it changes in their family situation or never really being given the confidence to pursue certain careers, and seeing how they can flourish after being supported by SmartWorks is just life-changing.
It's really interesting, isn't it, that when you think about your job interview, sometimes like for me, what I'm going to wear is like the first thing I think about.
Oh my God, same.
But like when you really think about it in a different sense, you're like, actually for a lot of people, it's probably going to be the last thing they think about because it's probably what's causing them the most stress.
Yeah.
And we all know first impressions count for everything. And it does have a massive impact on, you know, how you're going to perform in your interview. Like you said, when you feel your best, you perform your best. And I think like I didn't actually know these services existed until I was doing a bit of research. And like, are they spread out nationally?
Yeah, so SmartWorks operate all across the country and they're always looking to open more hubs. But I think it's great that they are located in so many different places, so you know that you don't have to kind of go too far to access their services. But yeah, each hub or each area has like its key leads, so you don't have to go to like their main hub in London to work with them.
That's really nice. A lot of the time you see a lot of city-centric things. And if you are in one of those financial hardship places that if you can't afford an outfit, you also can't afford to be travelling to like God knows where to be able to find your interview outfit. And it must be really rewarding for you as well to be able to hear success stories that come out of it. What does it feel like when you hear that somebody's got their job?
It just feels so freeing because you just know how much power there is behind a woman having control of their career. Women find themselves in so many different vulnerable situations, and a lot of the time when you trace it back, a lack of freedom in their career and power over their career is kind of a root cause, or finding that power and freedom can help to liberate you out of those difficult situations. So it's more than just having a job to have extra cash. It's literally the power to get yourself out of some really tough and scary situations, which I think a lot of people forget. It's a privilege to not connect work to escaping dangerous situations.
No, definitely. And I never actually thought about it like that until you mentioned it. As an ambassador, what particular role do you play within that organisation?
So for me, it's all about building visibility. So like you said, a lot of people aren't really aware that these services exist. So talking about it more, both for the benefit of people who are accessing the services and for people to have an impact on those services through whatever they can give, be it donations or their time as a HR professional to go and provide that CV support or other voluntary services. It's really key for me to be able to highlight it for that purpose. But also kind of using like my story, be it my career in engineering, being a Black woman who is striving for like the best in her career. Being that like figure is also a part of the job for me.
Oh, that's really amazing to hear. Obviously, the big subject that I really wanted to talk to you about as well is the fact that you are Miss Universe of Britain. I know you've alluded to it briefly in the interview, and obviously, you know, all of your accolades did bring you up to that point. Because I explain to people that don't know anything about the industry, there is no woman that walks the Miss Universe Great Britain stage that does not have a CV as long as her body.
No, seriously, like they're crazy. My director always says a winner is made off the stage.
Yeah.
And it's all, like you said, it's all about what you do away from the stage, but everyone thinks it's what you do on the night, which is a huge misconception.
What inspired your application to Miss Universe Great Britain?
Oh, so many things. So I started doing pageants 10 years ago, completely by accident. Everyone thinks that like one day I decided, wow, I'm so beautiful, I'm going to enter a pageant. I didn't even know they existed in the UK first until I was approached to enter into one. So I enjoyed like so many amazing years of experience in the industry. I represented England in a competition in Vietnam in 2017. Miss Universe is like the biggest pageant in the world, or the universe. So I always knew that it was like the ultimate goal for any pageant girl, but I'm just a normal girl, so confidence to enter anything that big wasn't really there for a very long time. And then we had lockdown, and I found that all of the amazing things that I'd done in my life and all of the cool experiences I'd had, like traveling to Vietnam and then traveling Southeast Asia and Australia after that, they kind of got taken away from me. And like the social impact that I'd had through pageants, I couldn't have it anymore because I was stuck home and I kind of didn't have any like outlet to express all of that. So I thought to myself, I need to do a pageant again. And the only next step to take is to do Miss Universe GB. And I literally applied in the last few hours of the applications being open.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Like, that's so me. But I was literally so hesitant for so long because I just didn't feel like I was that girl. I was like, I just don't feel like I'm there yet. But I feel like the process of being a finalist just builds you up to be the best version of yourself. And I had all the faith in the world that it would get me to a point where I felt confident enough to step on that stage and be who I thought I could be as Miss Universe GB.
Isn't it really weird that you were like, I wasn't too sure, I was really hesitant. When I saw you as a finalist, I was like, yeah, Noky would win.
When I saw you as finalist, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh my God, why?
I actually think I've got the screenshot that I sent to people I know. I was like, yeah, Noky is like incredible. And so isn't it really weird that I was on the inside, you have like that sense of imposter syndrome of people looking at you being like, no, she'll walk it easily.
I know, everyone thinks that when you do pageants, you think you're so sick. But honestly, like, you have the same like insecurities as any other girl. I do admit I am like probably more confident than the average girl, but I still have those days where I don't feel like 110%. And when I see you as a finalist, that's when I have those days.
Sorry, I don't mean to do that. What for you it was like the pivotal moment of the like journey up to the final that made you think, yeah, I could do this?
So I was trained by a former Miss Universe GB in the lead up to the competition, and one of the key elements of the competition is the top 5 question.
Yeah.
So you have effectively 30 seconds to answer a random question that you don't know what topic it will be on stage in front of a whole audience of people, and then people watching live at home. So I was practicing these on-stage questions with my coach, and they could literally be on anything. They've been on like Brexit, the vaccine, police brutality, everything. And the first time I was taught how to do them, I was literally bombing it so badly. I was like, I can't speak. I have no idea what to say. And then one day I turned up for my coaching and I just was reeling off answers. I felt so confident. I was like, I can do this. Like, I have the knowledge and like the kind of social understandings to answer these questions, tackle anything. And from that point onwards, I was like, I am confident to be Miss Universe GB because whatever is thrown my way by media, by fans, by skeptics, I can tackle it. So I felt like I could do it from that point.
It's really interesting. Like every time we refer to the pageant industry, the media or people that haven't necessarily been exposed to it, automatically assume it's very toddlers and tiaras-y. It's very like false, fake personalities. We love ourselves. We're very catty to each other. Like we cut each other's dresses up backstage. Obviously, we did the empowerment day together for Miss Universe Great Britain.
Yes.
It confused a lot of people on social media as to why I was walking on broken glass. Trust me, it confused me too at some point. But like afterwards, when you do it, you feel that day like felt so good to do.
Yeah.
So like, what was your favourite part of like the Miss Universe competition, Miss Universe Great Britain competition?
I have to say that was my favourite day. So we do the empowerment day on the very first day. And Paula, our director, always describes it as like a leveler. So it takes away everyone's ego because you have to do like the stupidest things. Like there's one part of it where like at random points in the session, the coach will put like music on and you have to just dance and like just be like silly and like just let loose. And for people who have so much on their minds, like this, take everything super seriously because they've spent a lot of time preparing for the competition. They want to make a very professional and good impression. To be forced to like be silly and not take yourself too seriously is so freeing. And it kind of reminds you that like no matter what pressure you've got in life, like it's never that serious. And I think weirdly enough, going from being in a serious situation and being able to remind yourself that you're human and you can kind of take a moment to just like chill and be yourself is so important. Because a huge part of being Miss Universe GB, of course, is fulfilling certain duties, but honouring yourself and being yourself and being able to like relax and just let loose is like so important. So I love that day. It was so fun.
What does it mean? Like, what duties do you have to fulfil as Miss Universe Great Britain?
So being an ambassador for women is absolutely like the most important thing. So for me, it's always kind of doing what is best for women and what serves women. So I'm really lucky that I work with, I'm an ambassador for a charity called A Sisterhood, which is Miss Universe GB's official charity partner. So A Sisterhood is effectively a funding vehicle which raises money for different charities which all have women's interests at heart. So that are all about supporting, protecting and empowering women. So a part of my prize as Miss Universe GB is that I get to donate to various charities, including SmartWorks Birmingham, who support women. So the female cause is like everything as Miss Universe GB. And just in general, like being a positive role model for women and showing what women are capable of. So everything I do is like driven like by that ambition. And obviously like doing cool things like going to Miss Universe and like doing photo shoots and just like different stuff that I would never, ever get to do normally as someone who works in finance.
The where you mentioned it there, going to Miss Universe.
Yes.
Is every, like, I don't think there's a pageant girl out there who doesn't ever dream of going to Miss Universe. I can imagine that knowing that you're going to represent an entire country is very intense, very challenging. When you actually, like, when obviously all the adrenaline's gone, when you've actually realised and you signed on the dotted line that you are Miss Universe Great Britain, what was that like daunting? Like, what was that moment like? Were you worried? Were you scared?
I go through all sorts of ups and downs with my confidence. So at some points I'm like, yeah, like this is made for me. Like I can do this. This is for me. And then at other points I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm so out of my depth. In other countries, Miss Universe is like everything. Like Miss Universe is basically like the most important female figure in that country. Like she's that girl. It's like you're a household name. Everyone knows who you are. Such a big thing. I always say Miss Universe Philippines, it's like the World Cup. Like when they watch their girl represent their country at Miss Universe, you see like images of people in like auditoriums like chucking drinks in the air when she comes on stage, like you see at the World Cup. Like it's actually like a huge thing and no one believes me. So for them, like they have so much like resource and like so much backing. Whereas in Great Britain, like not many people even know that Miss Universe GB exists. So you kind of have that imposter syndrome of being like, oh my God, I'm going to go and compete alongside women who are like that girl in their country and nobody even knows who I am. So yeah, it's like ups and downs of confidence. But I just think like if I'm having an impact on even like 100 girls that I know in the UK, like that's huge for me. And that's something that is not what the average girl experiences who has my background and experiences in life. So I have to find confidence in that and know that it's something that's worthwhile doing and that I'm very much capable of doing.
When you were at Miss Universe, obviously we were talking about how countries have huge fan bases.
Yeah.
Did it ever knock your confidence? Did it ever like make you want to go back into a shower or think like, oh, there's no way?
It didn't have a serious impact on my confidence, I'll be honest. Like, of course, there's times where you think to yourself, like, oh my God, I wish I had like all those people like cheering for me. But honestly, it didn't, because it goes back to what I was saying before of what other people bring to the table doesn't take away what you bring to the table. So again, my degree makes me super unique. My degree was talked about so much in the live show. I had like individual like clips shown of me talking about uni, pictures of my graduation, etc. So clearly they saw that as like a unique and valuable feature to share with the world. And that's different to what other people brought to the table. So I carry that message with me in everything that I do, that what I do is unique and valued, and what other people do is also unique and valued, but it doesn't take away from what I bring.
What is like the best part of being at Miss Universe?
Oh, I couldn't even pinpoint it. This is such a typical answer, actually, but the time that you spend with the people there is like so special, because you're in a room with however many, up to like 90 other women who are all as ambitious as you are and are all absolutely killing it in life. Like you go to an airport in Vietnam and you see Miss Vietnam on their billboards. You switch on like the TV and you see like so-and-so acting in something. For example, Olivia Culpo is a very well-known former Miss Universe. So you see people like absolutely killing it in what they're doing. And you think to yourself like, wow, like what a unique opportunity to like be in a room with these girls and also call them my friends. Like, people won't believe it, but we literally, like, even to this day, we talk on our group chat, like, constantly. They're now people that whenever I go anywhere in the world, I've got someone that I can text and be like, right, let's hang out, let's do something. So it's a proper unique experience to meet people like that.
Do you think you've grown as a person in the last year?
Yeah. Like, I always think to myself, if I didn't do pageants, I have no idea who I'd be. Because I think so many of my decisions have been influenced by the confidence that I've had. I mean, if you can walk on stage in a bikini in front of like millions of people, there's not much else to be scared of in life.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird, but like that pop competition, which is obviously so controversial, that just gives you the confidence to do so many other things in life. So I just have so much faith that I can tackle anything just through the sheer fact that I've tackled so much to prepare for Miss Universe. It's kind of personal branding, the confidence to like speak to like anyone in a room about any topic and do so confidently. It's the confidence that I can like style myself and like do my hair and makeup and like physically present myself well. There are so many skills that you get from pageants that just have such impact. Like even like my work interviews, I don't think I'd be as good at working interviews as I am now if I didn't do pageants. So yeah, the growth is just like, you could never measure it. It's amazing.
I do think that pageantry, especially in the UK, is a very controversial subject.
Oh, yeah.
People automatically assume that, like, you know, every time I've gone to preparation for a pageant, it's always about the interview. It's always about how I'm going to speak to these people. And, you know, all the time, I get it at work. Oh, you're so well media trained. And I was like, am I media trained or am I pageant trained?
Exactly.
They're very similar things. And I do, like you saying, it's about how you make yourself a full package. And I do think that, you know, we've been afforded opportunities that don't come to people in everyday life.
Yeah.
And like, there's like, I always say to people, like, you know, and come to one. Experience it for yourself, speak to the girls that go through it, because when you leave, like if it was so horrible, you wouldn't want to do another one ever again.
I know, you would find it an absolute nightmare. Everyone's so nice. You'd be like, why are they so nice? Like, I can't cope with this. I'm too mean for that.
Did you, like, when you were at Miss Universe, did you ever find that fan pressure got to you?
Do you know what? I was actually quite lucky. I say that sometimes it's a bit like difficult being from a country where pageants aren't so big, but in a way, I'm fortunate that I don't have as much pressure as girls from other countries do. Yeah, of course, like with anything that you do in life, there are people who follow what you do who are super positive and empowering and uplifting, but there are other people who aren't so positive. So sometimes I would get comments that weren't so nice. Also, I'm 5'3.5", so that's like super short for a pageant girl. So obviously, like every day people are saying to me, you're too short, you're Black representing Great Britain, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you shouldn't be doing this. So there's always people that are out to make you feel like you shouldn't be where you are. But my height isn't going to get me disqualified from Miss Universe. My skin colour won't get me disqualified. So I still get to experience all these cool things no matter what negative things people have to say about me.
It's a very traditional old school value as to like about your height.
Yeah.
Like they're obviously like I partially understand where people say that it's very anti-feminist to do beauty pageants, because back in the day you would have I don't think it's Miss Universe, but obviously back in the day there were some very traditional pageants that would read out your measurements on stage.
Yeah.
But they're very progressive now. They've moved on a lot. Like when you hear about Miss Universe and they talk about the competition and you hear the international directors and the CEOs, they talk about it as a platform for women.
Yeah.
If Miss Universe is not able to talk on any given subject on any given day, she is not a Miss Universe. And like, you know, you were saying that there are so many incredible women who have so many different individual accolades to them. Like no woman is the same.
Yeah. I do think, though, it's really important to touch on the fact that when you switch on the TV and watch Miss Universe, the majority of contestants are tall or are of a smaller dress size. But I honestly think that the reason behind that is that people haven't the stereotype hasn't changed in a lot of people's views, which is super unfortunate. So if you are someone who doesn't fit like the stereotypical look, you might not think that that's for you. So I think it's really important to kind of reintroduce the world to pageants and what they are today.
Yeah.
And then that shows a wider range of girls that this is for them. So even like being a girl in STEM, you aren't surrounded by people who are doing pageants traditionally. So you automatically think it's not for you, but you have something to bring to the table. You have a message to give to young girls who might want to pursue a career in STEM. So I think, yes, pageants are diversifying. They're not quite where they should be just yet, but I want more people to find the confidence to do them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Miss Universe is a very progressive system in my eyes.
Yeah.
They are one of the very few that allow transgender contestants.
Yes.
They've recently accepted mothers and married women as well. What if you were to make another change, like what would you add to that mix to make Miss Universe even more progressive than it already is?
I would increase the age limit, absolutely. This is like a topic that's on so many people's tongues. 28 is the age limit at the minute, and we can increase that, absolutely. Like, women have so much to offer, and so many different things to offer at different stages in their lives. I love having friends who are of all different ages, and I've been able to find friends of all different ages through doing pageants. And I know that they can bring so much to the table at an older age because they've experienced so much more. So I would love to see old women, older, not old, older women.
Yeah, sometimes it makes you feel bad when you look at it and you're like, oh, it's 28. Does that mean I'm like done now?
I know. Like my parents had me when they're 27. So for me, 27's always been like an adult. And I'm 26 now and I'm still a child. So.
I'm 27 now and I don't feel capable. Like my dog is...
Your child.
My dog is my child. That's as close as it's going to get. But I always end the podcast with a very similar question. I do feel like for you, your question is quite challenging. It's quite long. But what would you say to those people that think platforms like Miss Universe is anti-feminist and has no place in modern society?
I would challenge them to compete in a pageant and see if their opinions remain the same. I think people judge from afar and never really give themselves the opportunity to understand what pageant's all about close up. I think also give some grace to the industry. No industry is perfect, and even industries that are perceived to be super positive, they'll have some element of controversy behind them. It's just that people look for the controversy a bit harder in pageantry, and I don't think that's fair.
No, I think it's. I think people have to remember that what feminism means to you will be different to what feminism means to me.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that either of us are wrong.
Yeah.
And it is a decision that we've made for our own careers, our own self-development.
Yes.
And I personally don't think I'd be the same person without them.
I completely agree. And one thing to add is that I find that people struggle to accept that you can be so many different polarizing elements of yourself. So I can be an engineer, or I can work in finance and also be Miss Universe Great Britain and do both really well. People think that you have to kind of stay in your lane, but I think you can have multiple lanes and absolutely smash in all of them.
No, I agree, definitely. Well, thank you so much for being a guest.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so honoured.
Oh, no. And I can't wait to see what you do post Miss Universe Great Britain.
Oh, same here. I'm excited to see what the future holds.